Hello there. I'm back again with a video in our Sex and Abuse series, and today is video number 10, and I want to speak to you today about sex and abuse and brainwashing. And before I do so, just want to remind you to subscribe if you want to before you go, and to pop back to the other videos in the series, Sex and Abuse series, to have a look at the other aspects as well that I mentioned there. And on the rest of the channel as well, there are quite a few safe relationship training issues which I connect very strongly to our personal growth in order to help us to move forward with our personal growth and not get so stuck in these areas of abuse. So that's the purpose why I do this work as far as safe relationship training is concerned. So I want to get back to these issues of abuse and sex, connecting the two in this series because overall sex can be used for a number of purposes, and it's not only about romance and love and all the rest of it. It can be used for nefarious purposes in our dysfunctional relationships in order to keep us hooked in. And so if we are able to if the abuser believes that we're able to be manipulated, and they would have discerned that information by getting to know us. If they believe that we are able to be manipulated and groomed, then they will use those tactics throughout the relationship to keep us hooked in. And as I've mentioned elsewhere in the other videos, one of those tools that they can use is using our own sexuality against us, our own needs for closeness and for intimacy and for sex, in order to keep us hooked into a relationship which they may have built on their terms. So abusers like to have things on their terms, and they like to have a partner who is going to come in alignment with that. Otherwise, they don't bother with them so much because they like to have control. They like to be able to dominate the relationship and to guide it, and preferably to be able to dominate and control the partner as well, and mold them, groom them into the type of partner that they want them to be in order to fulfill their needs, which is for power and control. And often that power and control is very addictive for them. They will find it very difficult to give that up. And if you have been in a relationship with someone who is abusive in the past, you may have sensed this oppression, this feeling of oppression and suppression of who you are, your identity, because the abuser is trying to mold you to become someone that's going to fall in line with their agenda whenever they want to. So today I want to focus on sex and abuse and brainwashing, and how during the sexual act, which is a time when we're very intimately close to someone else, another human being, and often a time when we're more vulnerable because we've opened ourselves up to this other person by placing ourselves in that situation with them, trusting them that they love us, and because we love them, an abuser can use that situation of vulnerability in order to say certain things to continue to groom the person, such as convincing them that they like to be dominated, that they like to be controlled, that they like the abuser to have the upper hand, and to convince them that the victim enjoys what the abuser is dishing out. so that it's a sort of brainwashing and grooming process done at a time when the person is particularly vulnerable, particularly open to receive attention from their abuser, because the abuser may have used seduction and things and brought them into this place of vulnerability in order to brainwash them and to further convince them that the relationship is good, that it's working, particularly if it seems to be good sex, then that sets up a sort of cognitive dissonance within the victim, because they're confused and thrown off balance. Well, this area is working so well, the sex is so good, how comes I've got this other stuff going on, this abuse, which you might not identify as such, going on as well, because the two don't seem to marry together in our minds. And that is true, because love isn't about abuse, and love isn't about domination and control. Love is about freedom. And so this is why the victim becomes confused, because on some level they know that this isn't a loving attitude, but on another level they're still getting this apparent loving behaviour in the form of good sex. And they can't work out what exactly is going on, that someone would actually give them great sex and still want to abuse them at another time, or even during sex as well. And so they become taken off balance. Their values are often compromised because they've had to give away so much of themselves, and they've had to compromise themselves through the brainwashing, through the grooming process, in order to keep this relationship going, that they often lose sight of their values. And it's not until they're out of the relationship that they may see just how much they've compromised themselves and taken on the abuser's idea of them that they want them to be. So I just wanted to highlight today that sex and abuse can go together. And once we tease those two issues apart and look at them individually in their own right, rather than assuming that loving behaviour goes with abuse, which it doesn't. Love is gentle, love is kind. Love wants the other person to be free and to be happy and not to control them. Then we see a much clearer picture of what may be going on, which may be that brainwashing can even be used during sex, after, or any time when the person is vulnerable and trusting of the abuser. And so it sort of clarifies the picture a bit when we look at the sex and abuse, and we look at the reason why sex can be used as a weapon in order to convince us that we are actually in a good relationship, but we may just be having problems, and that's why we keep getting abused, as it were. So I hope that's helpful, and as always, stay safe and very happy. Bye-bye.